Hi, hello, and welcome to a very special edition of Call It What You Want. Not only because it's your second one in a week, you lucky bastard. I probably shouldn't say that word, but also because we have a very special guest. We have Jesse Marsch, of course, not a special guest. He's part of the show, but we have another special guest. In place of Charlie Davies, we have Tony Meola. Gotta give it up for Big Tones.
Good morning, boys. Good morning, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. We actually might prefer you over Chuck. We'll have to wait and see until after the show's over.
Just don't tell Charlie.
We won't say anything to him. He's somewhere doing something exotic, I'm sure, but yeah, we won't tell him anything. Now, Big Tones, we have nicknames here. Sometimes I'm known as Cream Cheese, and Jesse's known as Marshmallow, and there's a nice nickname that I heard that you have that could fit into this food theme that we have. Is it okay if we call you, what is it?
What would
Meatball?
Meatball.
You guys are going back to my high school days right now.
I love that.
Holy cow.
Well, this is we'll have a big Jersey theme, I think.
We're going to have a big Jersey theme. Yeah. That's right. I'm surrounded by Jerseyans right now.
My mom is smiling right now because she was Mama Meatball in high school. That's what everyone called her. And then she actually had the nickname before me. And then all of a sudden I became Meatball somehow.
You're like Meatball Junior.
Somewhere.
Well, we appreciate you, Meatball, for sharing some time with us. Okay, so some of the topics we'll be talking about today, because we have such a dedicated and decorated, I should say, goalkeeper from U.S. Soccer and U.S. Men's National Team, Tony Meola. We're going to have goalkeeper power rankings. We're going to have the magical soccer kingdom of Kearny, New Jersey, which we're already having. Americans Abroad weekend preview. We'll talk about Milan and Real Betis' midweek continental excursions. Those are some big words that I'm using. Now, as we do here on the show, a little call what you want word of the day, okay? You can call the sport whatever you want, soccer, football, fuchiball, foosball, but I've got a word for you guys. Jesse, I don't actually, let's go to our special guest first, okay? The word is Meldrod. Meldrod. I'm trying to say the best I can. Meldrod. So that is the word soccer, football, but from a different country. And I want you to tell us what language or country that is from. Big Tones. What are you saying there? And then we'll let
Meldrod.
Meldrod.
I'm going. I'm deciding between Iceland and Norway. That's just I don't know why I feel like I'm going to go. That's a Norwegian word.
I think it's Balkan. I'm feeling Balkan. So I'm going to go with Serbian. They play Meldrod. They definitely play a lot of Meldrod.
Both of you are wrong. Now here's a clue. First clue. This is a language that is spoken within a region of a country that has won the World Cup.
Okay.
It's won the World Cup twice. I'll say twice. It's won the World Cup twice.
Okay.
So it's a language that is spoken within a region of a country that has won the World Cup twice.
I mean, do you want Tony to go again? Or
is it Catalonian, maybe? Catalonian? Men's and women's World Cup winners?
Meldrod.
In Spain?
No.
Nope.
No.
It's only, it's the I think the two-time winners would have to be France. Is it a region, but is that right?
Yeah, that's so there are a few top division clubs from this region, and Carlos Bocanegra played for arguably the biggest one in this particular region. But yes, it is Rennes, and it is France, but the answer is Breton.
Oui, mais oui.
It's the region of that. So welcome, Tony. You've been introduced to the Call It What You Want word of the day.
I was in the right part of the map right there, Jim. It was only this far apart on the map.
If you draw a line between Norway and Spain, you hit France. So I think Tony gets half credit. Tony gets half credit.
Also, I want to make a correction. It's Kearny, New Jersey, and I appreciate you guys for not calling me out, but I know that you can tell that I'm not from that area because I didn't pronounce it correctly.
What did you say?
Kearny. You know, I'm just going to let that slide. We're just going to let that slide. All right, let's get into some midweek action that happened for some of our Americans. We're going to start with AC Milan taking on Rennes in the Europa League. Now, Milan have never won that competition before, but they have won the Champions League. a few times, not as many as Real Madrid because nobody's won it as many times as Real Madrid. Now, Big Tones, you are a huge Milan fan, and Christian Pulisic and Yunus Musa both started in this one in the 3-0 win. A nice comprehensive professional performance from them, really firing on all cylinders. What are your thoughts about our two Americans in this game?
Really good. By the way, second most Champions League wins for Milan in history.
7.
Just to put that out there. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think Christian Pulisic has had a great season, and I've read some stuff recently that there's some numbers floating around that it's not as good as some people thought. Look, he goes into a place, and I thought this was a great move for him. Where he's going to play week in and week out. He's going to play and compete for Champions League spots. He's going to compete at the top of the Serie A table. And part of the reason they haven't won this competition is because they're rarely in this competition, right? This is a Champions League caliber side. Remember last year they go to the semifinals of Champions League. I thought he was good. On 2 occasions, I thought he had opportunities where he probably wants back in front of goal. Ruben Loftus-Cheek and he have partnered fairly well right behind Giroud. And I think he's done everything that a Milan fan could ask him to do, although there probably needs to be a few more assists. I thought he'd be 15 combined this year, goals and assists. We still got some ways to go, and he's going to take penalty kicks, it looks like, so that might change things a little bit moving forward. But I like what he's done. I like the fact that he roams. He starts on the right-hand side, but when they go on the counter, he seems to be the guy that springs things. And with regards to Yunus Musa, look, it was good for him to get a start. He hasn't gotten a lot of minutes as of late, and you know what that can do for your rhythm. And there was an instance this weekend in their match where a ball got turned over, and he was the guy making a run, and all of a sudden he turned and unlike Musa that we've seen, he kind of flipped out on Pioli, like literally running back, but he sprinted back and won the ball. And I thought this could be that moment that changes things for him. But luckily he got the start. And I thought he was okay in the middle of the field. And all in all, Jesse, just a good result for Milan. Now, I don't want to say it's closed out, but I feel like it's closed out.
For me, I think this is one of Christian's best performances on the season. Tony, I've kind of analyzed him a little bit on something we do with Coach's Corner, and I've talked about some of the things he does well and some of the things that I wish he would do a little bit more of. One of the things I've been a little bit critical of Christian is that I just want to see him insert himself into the game more. I want to see him go find the ball. And sometimes he hangs out on the wing too much. And I think Pioli wants him to do that. But I feel like he could be more explosive to get into the attack and at sometimes be a little bit more selfish, take chances on himself. I feel like a lot of times he runs hard in the box in transition, but he doesn't get the cross or the service from Leao or from Giroud. So, I think he would have more numbers if he were a little bit more selfish at time and if his other teammates were not so selfish. But I felt like this performance, he was all over the pitch. He was pressing. He was running into the attack. He was going 1v1 at guys. He was good in combination at different moments. Maybe the one you're talking about is when he comes through the middle, creates a little combination, gives it to Leao and runs into the box and gets the ball back in with his left foot.
Gets a shot off.
Yeah. And so, this is what I like to see of Christian is when he's active, when he's running, when he's a part of the game in every phase a little bit more. So for me, again, this was a really, really strong performance, even though he didn't get a goal or an assist. I think it's one of his best of the year.
I love from a Milan standpoint, I think they're best in transition, right? And I know Pioli wants to have the ball and he wants to play through, all 3 parts of the field. But without guys like Tonali, without Kessie, who they had over the last couple of years, Çalhanoğlu, who was there for a little bit, I think they're better in transition. And I think it opens up Leao. I think Olivier Giroud can play in any sort of way, right? As he's a guy that's in the box and he creates and gets opportunities and scores goals when he has opportunities. So I don't think it matters as much for him whether they're a build-up team. But I think with regards to Christian, when they get in that mode, Jesse, it takes away, and Jimmy, it takes away a little bit of what you're talking about, the ability to roam. Because, when you start getting 30 yards from goal and you're playing teams that you got basically 25 guys, it seems like, and because it looks like the other team, when they're in those low blocks, it looks like they've got 15 players on the field. There's nowhere really to roam. And I think when they're in transition, they're a much better team. Sure, they want to have the ball, but I love when he's running at players. And Ruben Loftus-Cheek, by the way, can also run through the midfield and carry the ball 30, 40 yards and make good passes. So we saw a little bit of that yesterday in this match, and I'd like to see a little bit more.
Yeah, there was one play in particular that stuck out for me, and maybe it's because Yunus Musah made the pass that split the lines, and Christian Pulisic picked it up centrally behind their line of four of Rennes and in front of the back four, and he picks up the ball, and then he gets it, and then he runs. And I feel like, obviously we don't know the tactics of Pioli, but I agree with you, Jesse. It feels like he's being asked to stay a little bit wider to give him the team a little bit more width, and at times can maybe provide that depth in behind if Giroud decides to step into midfield. But I like when Christian has the handcuffs off, to your point, and is active and can find those gaps in the middle, because if you're a wide player and you drift centrally, it's really hard for that wide player to want to track you into those areas. And if Giroud is occupying the two center backs, then he's going to find that pocket like he did. He's very good on the half turn, and then now can run at the back four. I want to see more of that. He does that with the US because he's being asked to do that, and there's more of that space and understanding. But for Milan, it feels like he's not doing that as much. And I hope that they take maybe the handcuffs off and let him drift centrally at times, and maybe he just has that understanding with Musah, and he saw the space and just instinctually that's where he needed to go. And it's a great pass by Yunus. But I want to see more of that, all things considered. Overall, though, I think that it's a great performance for Milan. And as you mentioned, Tones, I think that they're in the driver's seat to do the business and get a nice, solid professional, maybe a 0-0 draw in leg 2 in France to just see it out into the next round. You referenced that article, though. James Bench, who's part of our family, the CBS Sports Paramount Plus family, wrote an article with Christian Pulisic being number 1 as most overrated player or winger, I should say, or attacker in the top 5 leagues in Europe. And we should have him on the show and really dress him down. I know there's some stats to back it up, but we don't have to be nerdy all the time. There's still some of the intangibles that I think that he's doing that are making a difference. And I do think at times he's following the orders of his coach and the tactics that are being laid out for him. So maybe he can't impact and influence the game in that way.
And I think this is an issue with Musah a little bit too, because they want a man mark in the middle of the midfield. So when they go 3v3 in the middle of the midfield, then Musah's just following his opponent around. And sometimes it's bringing him into the back line. And then he's not able to, when they win balls, be in position to help in those transition moments, which I think, again, is for Yunus, is when he's at his best, when he's in open space and he's able to run with the ball. So, there's, and listen, we know when you play in Italy that the tactical model of what the coach wants winds up being paramount to how a player performs and whether he gets the minutes that he wants. So, maybe that's part of what you're talking about, Tony, when Pioli and Yunus have a little bit of an exchange. I think I saw it also last game. It was something similar, but that's the same with Pulisic. And if you were just to compare what Leao does on that side defensively versus what Christian does on his side, Christian's running back into the box and defending against his outside back a lot more and being a very responsible teammate and player within the team. And I think it's why he plays a lot, because then that helps balance out with Leao. But that also means that Christian's not going to be as much a part of some of these transition moments and finding easy chances and easy goals as much as maybe he could. So, and it's funny, like here in Italy, and Tony, do you speak Italian? Are you fluent in Italian?
I grew up. That's my first language, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, I'm one of the things I do to try to learn more Italian is I read Gazzetta dello Sport, right? To try to pick up on some of the language and here where I'm living in Italy, not many people speak English. So you kind of have to learn, which is a good thing. But so then I read a lot of the articles and they're always super positive about Christian and what he's been providing to the team. And there's talk sometimes that of course he could find a way to get more goals and assists, but I think everybody here has appreciated the level of intelligence and commitment to the team that he has brought, and that's earned him the respect of the Italian media. So I think listen, they're both in a good place. It's a big club. Clearly the manager likes them both. They're both getting opportunities to play at a high level. They have a lot of games. I think, like you said, Tony, I think they'll go far in Europa League, so they'll continue to get minutes. And I think that this will bode well for them in the development of where they are in their careers.
James Bench, by the way, Jesse, he's an English writer. And, the English writing about Americans,
they love Americans.
Know a little bit about they
love
us, don't
they? They love Americans.
Yeah, look, I just can't look at this. And if you take like positive and negative, I can't see the negative side of Christian Pulisic at Milan right now. Right. And I know that's dumbing it down a little bit, but when you look at, sure, you can pick every game apart, and we all do, right? That's what we do. We pick games apart. But when I look at it big picture and what he's done at Milan, so far for me, it's been all positive, or it's been positive. Not every single game has been positive, but you can say that about any players in the world. So hopefully he continues to grow there. He certainly looks happy there. He looks like he's enjoying his football. He looks like he's enjoying being on the field, and I'm knocking on wood here, right, as most U.S. National team fans are, that he continues to stay healthy, because that's been what's bitten him over the years.
Yeah, it's really cool, ultimately, when you scrape everything away, to have Americans playing for such a historic club like AC Milan and holding their own and being impactful players for that particular club. I just get a big thrill. I watch them. I can't believe not only do we have one, but we got two guys on AC Milan out there pulling the strings and trying to make things happen. That's awesome. All right, there's another player, though, an American, Johnny Cardoso and Real Betis. We're hosting Dinamo Zagreb in their Europa League, or is it Conference League? It's one of the leagues. They're still in European competition, Conference League. And they lost. Dinamo Zagreb got the big 1-0 win away from home. And first things first, Johnny Cardoso, who came over from Brazil, so I guess this is kind of where he's going, but instead of putting Cardoso on the back of his jersey, he just goes with Johnny. And I've got a lot of time for that, because that is some confidence. That is some confidence. Jesse, I'll throw it to you. How do you think that Johnny performed in this particular match? I love that Manuel Pellegrini, who I really admire as a coach, is trusting him in such a big game and giving him valuable minutes throughout this whole season.
Didn't you have Conradinho or something like that?
He's been waiting to say that. I did, but I didn't wear it in a real professional game. For sure.
You should have been carded, red card for such behavior.
I think it was better back Conradinho, that's for sure.
So we've been, Tony, we've talked about Johnny a bit since his move to Betis, and we've been really positive about his move and this opportunity for him. He's clearly established himself with the team. He's played a lot. This, for me, though, wasn't his best. And I don't know if he was maybe a little tired, because he's been playing a lot of matches and a lot of minutes lately. He was okay, but he was defensively, he didn't press and win as many balls in the midfield, and he wasn't as big a presence against the ball in moments. And then with the ball, he stayed in the middle, and William would drift around a little bit to get balls. And then when Mark Roca came in, he did some of the same thing, but he just wasn't as active in the match and as sharp and clear as he has been in some of the previous matches. But overall, I think we all feel really positive about his presence in the team, his overall performances, the development of what this could mean in his career to be at a club like this and to be playing in a league and be getting major minutes. And, when you're a young player still, then being able to manage performance from performance to performance to performance and make sure that you're staying top fit and that you can handle the demands of a step up in a league and physicality and everything else is not so easy. But clearly this is a good situation for Johnny. Just for me, not his best performance.
Okay. So Tony, I want to tee you up with a question here, Big Tones, and I want this to be mixed into your analysis about Johnny overall. Has he done enough for you, and have you seen enough now that with Tyler Adams may or may not be ready for us for Copa America, would you trust Johnny Cardoso to fill that spot for us, or do you feel like we're going to still stick with like a Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie combo instead?
Well, has he done enough to be in that group? Yeah, for me, he has done, right? I don't know. Are we in a position as a national team that we can have a guy starting in the middle of the field in La Liga, game in and game out? And I think, fifth match in a row and fourth with 90 minutes under his belt. Like, are we at that point when we're missing Tyler Adams? And my guess is that wherever if Tyler Adams is available, I mean, I think it's safe to say, right, he won't be at 100% coming into the national team, right? He won't be fully fit, be able to play, 2 games potentially with the position that he's in. And is his club going to allow that? What's the agreement? But if you're asking me, am I okay with bringing Johnny in? Yes. Jesse, it's funny because the one thing I wrote down about the game yesterday was that he wasn't around the ball enough. That's what I got out of the game. I watched this one 90 minutes, and of course, I love what he's doing. I wish we had more players in Spain. I think it's such a great league, and we're seeing Luca de la Torre do it. And maybe this will open the door for some guys because I think it's such a great place to go learn the tactics of the game. You always have the ball. But when I look at Johnny, I look at him as a connector, right? Win the ball and connect, right? And I think that's probably what his ultimate role is going to be on any team that he goes to. And yesterday, you hit the nail on the head for me. He just wasn't around the ball enough. Now, there's something to be said for that, right? Because the one stat we don't see is that, especially with defensive midfielders, if you're not around the ball, maybe you're the guy clogging up lanes for other guys. Remember, Fekir's the guy where you got to clog up spaces in front of him quite a bit. So maybe you're closing up lanes where now the the opposition has to look another place and they go in another direction. So there's a little bit of that maybe as well. So take that into account. But all in all, I love the move for him. I was a little bit surprised by the move. I don't know where you guys were. I had no idea Johnny Cardoso was going to go from where was it Internacional, right, to Betis, and all of a sudden find himself literally that week in the starting lineup. So you talk about a change of scenery and a change of leagues and a kid stepping in and dealing with all of that responsibility. Pretty good start so far for him.
If I'm watching that game and I'm the national team coach, I think the only concern is, can Johnny play as a lone 6 like Tyler does, right? Or do you need to, against the ball, play like a double 6 and then maybe slide Musa back with him or Weston McKennie just to help cover the entire space in front of the back line so that you can defensively, cover enough ground. So that's the only concern. And again, he looked a little tired to me. He just didn't look to have the same power that he's had in some of the previous games. And I don't think that, I think Zagreb is a good team, but I don't think that it's above the level that they've been playing in La Liga. So that would be the question mark for me, is can he play like Tyler covers a lot of ground when he plays in there as the lone 6, and he's able to get left and right, close space down, win balls. And if you don't feel like you can get enough of that out of Johnny, then you might need to be thinking about how to help cover it a little bit with a double 6.
Yeah, I'll be
interested. And I think when you
go ahead. Sorry,
Jimmy. Sorry. Yeah, I think when you use Weston McKennie, he inherently wants to get forward, but he also has that bug to get back, right? Like he's a guy that will always do the work to get back, and I think he's a little bit. For me, he's a little bit of a security blanket, right? Because, you can start with 2, but you're going to get something in the attack from Weston when he plays in there. So he will get forward. We kind of see him at Juve. He plays in that 5, in that inside right channel, and he'll defend as much as anybody. But he will also end up in the box trying to get on the end of crosses, So he's always had that work rate. So he might be a compliment to Johnny. But of course, all of this hinges on sort of the fitness of Tyler Adams and where he's at, and because he's that one guy, as Jesse says, Jimmy, that can really get around the ball, can cover space. I don't know how, for your side, Jesse. I mean, I don't know how many countless number of counterattacks he broke up almost single-handedly, right? Mm-hmm. He was just kind of waiting and backtracking and waiting, and boom, he'd go attack the ball, and before you know it, he'd poke one away and stop. That's just Tyler Adams. It's the reason we don't have 2 of them, right? So there isn't another one just like him. So Greg's going to be forced, if he's not available, to kind of make it up.
Or do they play with Musa and McKennie and Gio, some version of this? That's another option. But even you're still asking Musa's ability to be just a pure number 6 defensive type midfielder. He's more of an 8, and he's more of a runner as well. So yeah, they'll have some issues. They'll have some questions to ask of how to help cover a lot of the work that Tyler usually brings to the team.
It's another show, but 3 in the back. Give me 3 in the back with the national team. That's what I want to see. I've been clamoring for this for years, Jimmy.
Listen, we
it's
have
just me on my high horse.
we have two players that can play the wingback position, and Anthony Robinson and Serginho Dest play it well. So you're preaching to the choir. We wouldn't mind seeing that, and maybe we'd roll it out against Jamaica in the Nations League semifinals. I don't know. Greg Berhalter, you listening? You watching? We're gonna take our first break and call it what you want. When we come back, we're gonna break down the goalkeepers with our favorite goalkeeper in U.S. men's national team history, Tony Meola. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I am Cream Cheese alongside Marshmallow and Meatball, and we're having a blast here talking with Tony Meola in particular about goalkeepers. So we're going to get into it right now, Big Tones. We want to know your power rankings for our goalkeepers who feel a little vulnerable right now, our goalkeeper player pool for the Nations League and Copa America. Who do you think should be vying to start? And I think we can all say Matt Turner, but is there anybody else pushing him? Are you worried that there aren't enough players for us to consider? Take it away, Big Tones.
Yeah, I am a little bit concerned. I've been talking about this for quite a while. And look, Matt Turner's the number one guy now. And then after that, there's a little bit of a toss-up, right? You got an Ethan Horvath who essentially hasn't been rostered, right, for 3 or 4 months with his club. You've recently had Zach Steffen make the move from Europe to Colorado, so we'll see how that pans out. But I still think there's a little ways to go, right, with Zach, and he didn't go into this sort of period in good form, and it doesn't make the World Cup roster. And now he comes back, and he's going to have to get back up to speed with his form, right? He's got to play some games. The one guy I am impressed with in Major League Soccer, and maybe comes under the radar, although maybe not because he won an MLS Cup, and that's Patrick Schulte, right? He's a guy that I'm looking at and wanting to see now. I'll call it year 2, right? Like year 2 of being the man on a club and what it looks like and how steady you can be. Trying to think of other guys, but my big concern overall is the lack of playing time for the goalkeepers. And I said the night of getting eliminated from the World Cup in 22 against the Netherlands, I said, moving forward with our national team, and Jesse, you can speak better to this than I can, as a manager, obviously, I would like to see every one of our guys being a starter in their group. If we're going to call this the golden generation, and I saw your rant, and I agree about we need a signature win, and I get all of that, but I still think a golden generation of players, including the goalkeepers, needs to be playing week in and week out, and that's where we should select our players from. With the goalkeepers, though, it's been a little bit different because we haven't had that luxury, Jesse, of picking from a pool of players that we know these guys are playing every week at their club. We haven't had it, right? And that part's that's a little concerning to me.
Where are you on Matt Turner and his performances and being at Nottingham? How do you feel about him overall?
I wish that if, even with the lack of playing time, and now rotating, and look, they looked at 7 different goalkeepers they were rumored with 7 different goalkeepers in the transfer window, right? After bringing Vlachodimos in with a Greek owner, like that all for me doesn't sit well, right? Like you're already behind the 8 ball. So with the lack of playing time, the games that he has played, I would love to have seen them been games that were all sharp, right? Where you said, okay, I did everything right in this match. And look, everyone talks about his play with the feet. I'm in agreement. He's not great with his feet. He's never been great with his feet. I just hate the fact that he tries to complicate it more than it needs to be, right? Like get the ball off your feet if you're not good with it. So I can't imagine that as a goalkeeper, he feels himself 100% confident in what he's doing. I've been back there. You're on an island all the time. It's like a forward who has 10 chances and who doesn't score, right? You can't feel confident about yourself. When you get 2 chances and you score 2 goals, right? It doesn't matter how you feel really good about yourself. I can't imagine right now Matt Turner's completely settled in what he's doing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I felt a little bit like they were asking him at times to do things with the way that they were playing out of the back, right? And I think when I've been a coach, what I say, Tony, often is I don't know enough about all of the technical aspects of being a goalkeeper, right? It's the position that's hardest for, I think, us field players that become coaches. We understand positioning, we understand crossing positioning. I talk a lot about how they're the last defender, but the full technical package it's not something that I'm so savvy with. But what I do know is I can tell when a goalkeeper is confident, right? And when he looks confident and when his mentality is strong. So that's a little bit what you're talking about. And then what I was feeling with Matt Turner is that if they're asking him to play out of the back more, and I felt like Jimmy and I had a conversation that they were passing back to him too much, and they were the defenders were just like taking no responsibility and just like, oh, we'll give it to the goalkeeper and then we don't lose it, instead of playing forward or playing up the field themselves and moving the team up, that they were putting him in position to fail. And then my feeling in general with Matt was for him to get back to being confident and finding his rhythm is just sticking to the things that he knows he's good at, being strong, having a presence. And then with the ball, like clearing the ball out, not worrying about, playing the elegant style of football, but sticking to the things that he's really good at. And by the way, his strengths are really good. He's a great shot stopper. He's long. He's good on crosses. He's got real presence. He's a communicator back there. So he still has a lot of qualities for me to be a top goalkeeper. It's just for him to find his rhythm and find his confidence so that he's playing at his best again.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the problem. It's hard to find your rhythm for anybody, right? When you don't play. I mean, how many conversations have you had with players who are like, I don't feel good about the way I'm playing right now. I'm not getting a lot of minutes. How do I get to that point? We've all gone through it as players. You've gone through it at the highest level as a manager, trying to convince guys that you'll get some minutes here. This is where you need to make. In training, training, I hear about training all the time. They're rarely training anymore. You know this. They're hardly training with their schedule. So that's why I said when those moments where he's had opportunities, I would like them to have been a little bit sharper, and they haven't.
So Tones, I'm going to come back to you on this because I think it's pretty clear that Matt Turner will be our number one. So the power rankings can pretty much start and stop there. But which goalkeepers would you actually bring to the Olympics? Because if we talk about a golden generation, maybe it's coming. I mean, Gaga Slonina.
That's what I'd bring.
He's 19. You got Chris Brady with Chicago Fire, who I thought was tremendous last year. You can see his upside. He's going to make some mistakes like all of our goalkeepers, but we have some very young ones in the pipeline. You mentioned Schulte's another one. Celentano, FC Cincinnati could be one. Coachins at Barcelona. So the golden generation for our goalkeepers could be coming, but they're probably not ready yet. They're not there yet. But which ones of these, maybe 5 or 6, would you bring to the Olympics? Which 2, I guess?
Well, I'd certainly Gaga for me is the starter. Chris Brady, I'm not completely sold on just yet. I still have to see a little bit more. Just far too many mistakes. And when I say mistakes, not like massive errors, but spilling a ball here, making a decision to come out and not come out, missing one, but not paying the price for it. I need to see a little bit more. But I know in Chicago, they're really, really excited at this kid's development and where he's at and where he's going. But for me, Gaga Slonina is the guy. Coach, and I don't know if you bring him now. He'll be 18 years old. I know Spain is looking at him. I think he has the opportunity to go to Venezuela and one other. I don't know if he makes those decisions. I think there's 4 national teams that he can play for. So when you're looking at that young group, I mean, those would be the names that stick out. Schulte still, I think he's still available for that group as well.
He'd be available.
Yeah,
we have 3 overage players, and we've taken a goalkeeper in the past.
See, I don't think this is a group you use it with. We almost had to in the past, but I don't think this is a group you need to use an overage goalkeeper with.
Okay. What about you, Jesse? Where are you on which goalkeeper you would take to the Olympics if you? Do you spend an overage here and try to bring? Not that Matt Turner would be available, but just hypothetically.
No, I don't think you would. I think the eligible players are at similar levels outside of Matt Turner, right? And Matt Turner, I think, is gonna be committed to Copa America. So I would say Gaga. Listen, I will heed to Tony on his opinions, but Gaga for me, watching him in MLS, and I know Eupen is. They're not in their best way, but still, it's a good league, and I think he's challenged and he plays a lot, and I think he performs pretty well. So I think it'll be an opportunity for him. I think it's his to lose to be the starter on the Olympic team. So, and I think we all know that with his size, with his athleticism and his technical ability, and his potential is very high, very high. So it'll be fun to watch, I think, to see him develop, and if he can establish himself at a really high level at Eupen, what other opportunities will be down the road in a couple of years.
Tony Meola and Jesse Marsch have made their decisions, and I am all for it. All right, we're going to take our next break for Call It What You Want. When we come back, little weekend preview of our Americans abroad, so don't go anywhere. Hello, and welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy alongside Tony and Jesse, and we are talking a little Americans abroad. Weekend preview, some notable fixtures. I'll start there first. On Saturday, we got Norwich versus Cardiff. Big matchup. We've got a couple Americans, one on each team in that one. Celta de Vigo taking on Barcelona. Celta need a result here because they're 3 points away from the bottom of the table in Spain. Hell yes, Verona. That's how I like to say it. Hell yes, Verona taking on Juventus. And then Fulham taking on Aston Villa. That's happening on Saturday. On Sunday, Monaco taking on Nothing Toulouse. Real Betis taking on Alaves. And Monza taking on AC Milan. So we're going to get into some of our players to watch, games to watch. And Big Tones, I'm going to come to you first. Which game really sticks out for you in our notable fixtures?
Well, I always look at Monza and Milan. Of course, Berlusconi, who's recently passed. That's like the Berlusconi derby, if you will. So I'll pay attention to that one. But Norwich against Cardiff City is one that sticks out to me because Josh Sargent is on a little bit of a run right now. 5 matches in a row with a goal, and I'm still, as much as we talked about the goalkeepers earlier, I'm still looking at our number 9s in the U.S. men's national team pool. And, of course, on the other side, Ethan Horvath, if he does start, he hasn't started since May of last year. He hasn't started a match. So he's now at Cardiff, so we'll see how that goes. But in particular, I think it's safe to say that Josh Sargent is going to get himself a run here. And I'll look at him and see if his form continues because I'm not completely convinced just yet that I would give the number 9 position to anybody on the national team at the moment. I wouldn't hand it to anybody. And I don't know that we can just kind of overlook, Jesse, anybody that's just scoring goals at the club level, right? When you're talking about the national team, someone who's in form. So those would be obviously one eye on Milan and Monza, but Norwich Cardiff will be where I'd probably focus my attention.
Okay, Norwich currently in 7th in the championship. You got to be in the top 6. Top 2 go to the Premier League, but the next 4 go into the playoff to try to get into the Premier League. They're tied on points with Coventry, who are in 6th, but they're right outside of it due to goal difference. Josh Sargent actually has 4 goals in his last 5, just to correct you there, Big Tones. But that's still a nice run of form, and I'm a Sargent fan, so hopefully he continues that and can get on to.
No, wait a minute. I'm a huge fan. Taylor Booth.
You know what? I am a Taylor Booth fan. They don't play the same position, Jesse, so I appreciate you calling me out. But I can wear pajamas for all different types of players. I'm a big number 1 fan for a lot of guys. So that's going to be a good one. Cardiff, middle of the table. They need to get some results if they really want to have any chance of getting into that playoff. It doesn't look good, but we'll see if Ethan Horvath can help them. He started midweek against West Brom and lost 2-0. We'll see if they go back to him again. Hopefully they will. Jesse, coming to you. What are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting games, I think. I think I'm going to keep my eye on 2 matches, okay? The Hellas Verona against Juve, and they took Timothy Weah out in the 61st minute last game, and now Juve hasn't won in the last 3 matches. So I hope that I hope that they go back to Timothy. And then, obviously I'll keep an eye on Weston, and we referenced a couple weeks ago how great Weston's been playing. And then I'm going to also keep an eye on Gio and see, if maybe it's time that he gets a start. I don't know. We'll see with Nottingham Forest. They play West Ham. Obviously it's an important game for both clubs, not having won so much in the recent weeks. So I'll kind of keep my eye on both games, and then I'll make my pick on Sunday. And let you guys know.
Okay. Sounds good. I appreciate that. I'm going to stay in the Premier League. I do think that Gio Reyna one is interesting, especially West Ham coming off that 6-0 drubbing by Arsenal at home. There could be a good opportunity to put on more attacking players, Espirito Santo and get Gio on the field. I'd like to see that. Hopefully a start would be pretty cool. But I'm going to go Fulham. They're going to be hosting Aston Villa at Craven Cottage. Since Tim Ream has gotten back into the team, 2 draws and a win in their last 3. You love to see it. So long may that continue for the captain of the club and the captain for the national team when Tyler Adams isn't available. I know we've had discussions here on the show about Tim Ream's future, but if he's continuing to play and he's playing well and he's so savvy with or without the ball.
What about Christian? Christian's captain too.
That's true. We have a lot of captains.
Okay.
But
Is
I
this
feel
like college where you do tri-captain?
That would be awesome. We throw vice captains out. We just have 3 captains.
Who do we go with as the captain now? I guess Tyler, right? Yeah, I mean, I suppose
he was the captain of the World Cup.
Yeah.
So
but tri-captains are always.
It is kind of cool. It's like the NFL Super Bowl. They come out with like 5 captains. I don't know.
Yeah, they all roll out. They all roll
out. But I think this is a big match. Obviously, Aston Villa, one of the surprise teams. Maybe not a surprise to some if you're a big Unai Emery fan, but they're coming off back-to-back losses. The first time they've lost consecutive games all season. So we'll see how they respond. And Fulham coming off a big 3-1 win over Bournemouth. So it's a good one. I want to see Anthony Robinson continue to do his thing. Apparently, he cut his hair, so he's more aerodynamic than before, which if that makes him a little bit faster, we'll take it. He's obviously been very good for Fulham this season and drawing interest from clubs around the world. So I want to see how they perform against a very good Aston Villa team who are probably in a little bit of crisis mode after losing 2 consecutive games. So those are the ones, or the game that I'm looking at. And obviously we'll be talking a little bit more about which Americans stepped up in our recap show next week. But that's all I got. Any other notes for you guys on any players we should keep an eye on?
I like the Gio shout. Taylor Booth, of course, and his brother, if they line up again.
Hey, 5 goals in his last 2 games, Jesse. Stop making fun of him. All right. That's it then for Americans abroad. We're gonna put a little teaser on that because we look forward to talking about these players and how they perform after they get to play in these games. But when we come back, we're gonna talk about the $1 billion goal and also New Jersey hosting the 2026 World Cup final with a guy who went to Princeton that's in New Jersey and a guy that grew up in New Jersey and just how important New Jersey has been to our country and the sport overall. So, yeah, don't go anywhere.
Some places you'll see basketball hoops, where in Kearny, you see soccer being played. You drive around daytime, nighttime, kids are playing nonstop. 30 years ago, Kearny had that.
That whole early 90s team, you wouldn't have requalified for the World Cup if it wasn't for North Jersey.
I don't know how much credit I want to give U.S. Soccer in terms of having an actual plan. When it comes down to it, we got lucky. You have the perfect situation for that kind of generational group to come together, 3 players who end up being key pillars of the national team. I think Kearny, New Jersey is just the perfect example of what soccer can do, what immigrant communities can do in terms of cultivating the love for sport.
Gotta love it. Wow, the $1 billion goal is a fantastic documentary. We highly suggest that you take a look at it.
I just had the chills.
Me too. It focuses on the biggest game-changing moment in American soccer history, and one that really hasn't been celebrated as it should be until now. The $1 billion goal is now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's a 3-part docuseries, including firsthand accounts from several of the players who pulled off that epic upset. Plus, in one of his last interviews, the late Grant Wall provides historic perspective as only he could. And one of those players is Tony Meola. Big tones, baby. Unbelievable.
Man,
so when you see that younger version of yourself, like, how awesome is that you were part of this and had such an important hand, literally, in this moment in U.S. soccer's history?
You know, it's weird, Jimmy, because anyone who knows me, I rarely look back, right? I don't watch games. I don't look at what I've done, and maybe that's silly on my part, but I always feel like I'm trying to move forward in the game. And then when they asked me to do this documentary, I was all over it. And the reason I was all over it is because in this day and age with social media, I get it. You know, you develop fans, and there's kind of pre-social media and there's post-social media, right? And how we look at players. And I've always felt like that particular group from Bob Gansler, our manager, on down to the last player on that roster, has kind of been overlooked a little bit. So I was thrilled to do that documentary, be part of it, because I knew that at a minimum, well, certainly you'd learn something about the game, and you'd learn about that particular game against Trinidad, but you would recognize and you would finally understand what that group went through, and you would know the names of some of the players. I mean, how cool was Mike Windishman in that video, in that documentary? That's our captain. That's the guy. Like, for me, I was a 20-year-old kid. That's the guy. When I had a problem, that's who I looked at. Tab Ramos and John Harkes were, we lived within a mile of each other, essentially, right? And Tab lived kind of right in the middle of us. I could almost draw a straight line from my house to John's house. So I knew those guys, and those are guys I leaned on when I was a young kid. Bruce Murray was like the next, and I thought he was great in the documentary. He's one of the funniest cats you'll ever meet in your life, but he was outstanding. So long story short, I was just happy that that group of players got recognition for doing something that, quite honestly, was really special in this country. We hadn't been to the World Cup in 40 years. We take the World Cup for granted now, right? We think we should be in the World. We learned in 2018 there's no God-given right to be in the World Cup. I don't care what region of the world you're in. But if you think about that group, I'm so happy that CBS and Paramount decided to kind of dig back deep, and I learned a lot about the game in that first two, the first two parts of that 3-part series. I didn't know all that history, and I love the history of soccer in this country. So, man, go watch it. If you like anything about U.S. soccer, go take a peek.
Jesse,
let me ask you, Tony. Sorry, Jimmy.
No, go ahead.
So you guys are riding on the bus to go to the stadium, right? And I've been to that Trinidad stadium, and when I went there, I could only think about that moment, right, where you guys won that match. I mean, take me through how you were feeling, your emotions, your nerves. You know, did you guys know that it was a huge moment in history? Like, what was the feeling that you had?
I don't know that we knew that it was a huge moment in history. I think we all knew that this was a huge moment in our careers, right? We knew that we hadn't been in the World Cup. I watched in 1986, when we lose to Costa Rica. Like, I watched that, right? And I'm like, I want to be part of the group that gets to the World Cup. I don't want to be part of another group who fails to get to the World Cup for whatever reason, right? And we're driving into that stadium, and there was a moment where the bus driver literally looked back at Bob Gansler and said, I think we're going to have to walk from here. And there's no walking through that Red Sea of people. Like, we're not going. Like, you got to step on the gas here somehow. We could hardly get into the stadium. People were painting their cars red, their houses red. I mean, they had won the game already. But for me, I was a punk from New Jersey. Like, there's no way we're going to lose this game. Like, there's not that, like, didn't cross your mind. And then what it did for the sport after the fact, just incredible. So again, I'm happy that people will know some of those names that maybe they didn't know in the U.S. soccer history books.
Well, Tony, I'm going to go right back to you on this then, with the announcement that the World Cup final in 2026 is going to be in New Jersey. Yes, I know they claim a little bit of New York, and I understand why they do that. But how full circle of a moment is this? And I know that we hosted in '94, and I know there were some big games in the same area, but to host the World Cup final hits different. The different gravy, different sauce. How does that feel for you, knowing that how big and how important New Jersey was to the development of the game, and to help us achieve as much as we have? And we could speak on the women's team too, right? Carly Lloyd, I believe, is from New Jersey as well. So she's been a pretty pivotal member of the women's national team for quite some time.
Well, Jimmy, those who know, actually, they refer to it as the great state of New Jersey is how they call it when they refer to it. But yeah, look, I'm excited. I was a little bit surprised. I thought it was going to be Dallas, right? Dallas, let's face it, FIFA's about money, right? They've got 30 plus suites. They've got 12,000 VIP seats in AT&T Stadium. And that, to me, just like reeks money every time you put people in there. But I'm so excited, man. It's in New Jersey. I can't believe that's 3 miles from where my parents live, and where I grew up. And to have it to think when I'm sitting there watching Italy in 1982 and watching Dino Zoff in that group and Tardelli and all of those players that I grew up watching, to think that a game like that is going to be like in my backyard is incredible to me. And gosh, as a kid from New Jersey, man, if you'd have told me in 1982 this was going to happen, I'd have told you you're crazy, man. But I'm so happy it's here.
Why did you three emerge in the whole picture of U.S. soccer? Was it lucky? Was it that you guys had some good coaches and mentors, that you were always in the streets playing? Like, what do you attribute the reason to why you three became so good?
Yeah, good question.
You just named all the reasons. I think you're lucky. We had great coaches. We played Jesse in the streets until the cops would kick us out. All right. There's been documentaries about the courts in New Jersey, and I think you guys have probably been down there at some point, right? And now in Harrison, I rode by Harrison right by the arena, Red Bull Arena, about 2 weeks ago, and I'm amazed still how many people line up to play. We thought, Jesse, you didn't grow up in New Jersey. We thought where we grew up was like normal around the country, right? All first generation kids. Predominantly from the UK, Scotland, England, and Ireland. Myself and Sal Rosamili were the only two Italians in town, so they just let us play. We thought it was normal that's what you do. You go in the street all night and you play soccer. We didn't play football. We didn't play baseball, though I love baseball. I grew up playing it. We played soccer. That's what we did. We come to realize now that wasn't necessarily what was happening all around the country, right? That's not how everybody grew up. And you add all of those things up, you get a flavor for winning. And then, one thing leads to another. Before you know it, the two of us combined played in 2 World Cups together, and we played in, a few more total. But man, it's incredible. I'm so happy to see now that we have more of that around the country. I don't think we do it enough. And I think that's why, and I know it's a bigger discussion, that's why in, South America is producing some of those players with a little more flair, maybe because they take the reins off a little bit more maybe than we do here in the U.S. But we played all night. There were no rules. The rule was win. Find a way to win. Find a way to be the guy that stays on the court all night. So, I mean, you said it better. I mean, it's a combination of things. The luck is one of them. There's no question about it. But we were lucky to be in that area of the country.
I want to say, Tony, it hurt my heart to hear you say that you don't think that some of your guys have been appreciated and acknowledged. I've been on a few of these things and talked about whether it was the $1 billion goal or there was another documentary that McCabe did about you guys in New Jersey.
Soccer Town, USA.
Yeah, Soccer Town, USA. And, for me, you guys were my heroes. Like, really, like growing up and watching you guys play. I watched the Trinidad game. I don't think I would have been in MLS. I don't think I would have been the player that I was. And then obviously going to MLS, and you guys were a big reason why MLS even existed. And then the opportunities that it gave to all of us. I remember, I think I went to watch you guys play AC Milan in 1988, I think it was, in Chicago. And I was on the youth 89, and I was on the youth national team. Andy Rudowski was the trainer for us. He was the trainer for you. He gave me tickets to the match. I brought my best friend who we played with. We drove. I just got my driver's license. I drove down to Chicago. I watched you guys. Then he got us into the post game. And I was like, I think I was 16. I just got my license. I was walking around getting your guys interviews. We were taking photos. Like, my friend and I couldn't believe that we met you guys. And literally, you guys were an inspiration. I think you were the first real good national team that we had that I can remember. And obviously the success that you had to get to 90, and then how you guys helped the success of 94, and then at the start of MLS. So, now I'm friends with a lot of you guys, and I text with a lot of you guys and follow. And I know you guys have been really supportive of me in my career, and it means a lot to me. And I want you to know that there's still this there's a core generation of us who looked up to you guys and thought the world of you, and you've meant the world to us in terms of being able to establish a career for ourselves.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, I will say this, like, I've been in the game since I left. You know, John Harkes, people will recognize, Tab Ramos, but did they know Bruce Murray? But maybe he was one of the best forwards we've ever had. Did they know John Stolmeyer, our sixth? Did they know John Doyle, who played in MLS a little bit?
He was a great
player. Mike
player.
Windishman was our captain. And I'll tell you what, I've had so many captains, and I've been a captain, by far the best one. I mean, no Long Island guy, no frills. Hey, Mike, what do you do this? And you did that, whatever it was. Like so that's my point. Brian Bliss, who's been at Sporting Kansas City for a while, played in the league, but do people really know that he was in that group? You know, Paul Crumpy,
Desmond Armstrong, Jimmy Banks. Jimmy Banks was from my area. You know, you could Hugo Perez, Frankie. You know, you guys, you got Kobe. You guys had a really talented group, really talented.
I'll just say for the record, I had my Soccer America clip stuff, and I had Desmond Armstrong all over my like closet door because I loved his game in particular.
Love it, man.
And I'll say this very quickly, my own story. When I got traded from the San Jose Earthquakes in MLS to Kansas City, my number one selling point, and for it was like, I get to play with Tony Meola. And you know how like everybody knows who Tony Meola is. Like, he's going to be on my team. I used to watch that guy and look up to him, and it was a big thrill.
And then I ended up saving your life almost, right? I almost saved your life at Giant Stadium.
New Jersey.
And
Ivis,
who we saw, in New Jersey, please, Jimmy. The great state of New Jersey.
We just saw Ivis talking about it, but I actually did collapse in a game against the Metro Stars. It was really hot that day, and Big Tones came out and made sure that I was okay.
Well, you were right in front of me. I mean, you literally fell like you were. Remember, it was on a restart, if I remember, and you hit the ground. You fainted. And you know, I did everything short of mouth to mouth because I saw the paramedics coming, but
I was sad. I still want a little mouth to mouth
choices in my life, but so we go full circle, my friend.
Full circle. But yeah, wow, it's been incredible. And to echo the sentiments from Jesse, I can't tell you how important you and all these other players, this group of players, were to the next generation, and hopefully the generation where we play, not necessarily me and Jesse per se, but continues to inspire the kids to be even better and want to be even better and want to be part of what we're building here. And it's incredible.
Thanks.
And I can't say enough.
Guys.
The $1 billion goal, everybody, streaming on Paramount Plus. Go check it out if you haven't. If this hasn't sold you on watching it, I don't know what else will, because this has been an incredible conversation about it. Okay, we got our last break. Call it what you want. So we're going to get into a little jersey swap history. Tony Meola, what's his best jersey swap of all time? It's going to be good. So come right back and join us. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Jesse Marsch and Tony Meola. And Big Tones, in honor of New Jersey, I'd like to ask you about your favorite New Jersey from your playing career. Like what I did, that's terrible. It's a terrible pun. But
by the way, we didn't bring up the nothing to lose. The next time you say that, it's a fine. I think we have to go into the fine.
I say it so fast, I just keep it moving. Keep it moving.
Bad.
It's such a bad dad joke that even the dads think it's a bad joke. So that's how bad it is. So Big Tones, we have done this in the past, but your favorite jersey swap, or maybe a time you wanted to swap jerseys and you got the big, I don't swap. We've had that happen. But or do goalkeepers even swap jerseys? I don't even know how that works. Okay.
Oh yeah, we swap jerseys. I think my favorite one is probably Walter Zenga in the World Cup in Italy. That match we lost 1-0. Well, you asked me. I have to give you the answer.
That's a great one. No, it's a great answer.
Yeah,
he saved it with his butt, Tony. He barely saved.
My
I think
gosh.
it was Chab's shot with his butt.
Bruce Murray with the free kick, and I think Peter Vermes with the follow up. And Zenga came out and spread himself, and it hit him in the butt. We'd have tied it 1-1. But yeah, that one, because if I could pick two places to play in the World Cup, obviously they would have been Italy and the U.S. And here I was as a 21-year-old, I'm sorry, at the time, playing a World Cup in Italy in Rome against the host nation. I couldn't have picked a better a better spot to do it. And hell, we got drawn with Italy. We have to play, right? And we got our asses whooped the game before 5-1 against Czechoslovakia. And I think we made up for it with the performance we put against Italy and had a chance. So that jersey, I have it framed at my house, and it's a
gray,
really cool
right? It
one.
was gray.
It's the gray, the shiny gray. Yep. If you remember, it had that shine with the logo and the collar too, which was really, really cool. So that's the one, Jimmy.
Okay, it's funny when you bring up that you got smashed by Czechoslovakia and then had a redeeming performance against Italy, because that happened to us in the 2006 World Cup. We got smoked by Czech Republic. Jan Koller dunked on us. He's like 6'8" and dunked on us 3 minutes in. And Pavel Nedved was unbelievable to watch in person. And Thomas Rosicky scored a banger. And then we had to have something in the second group game, and we got that 1-1 draw against Italy. And so I feel like we lived little parallel lives. And I got to play, which was awesome. But so I had a similar moment. I switched with Andrea Pirlo. That's my flex of the day. But Zenga sounds a lot cooler, to be honest, because of his butt save in particular, and because of all the things that you mentioned. Jesse, since we've talked about the floor of changing jerseys, like who's your favorite while we have you?
Well, I didn't trade a lot of jerseys, mostly because I don't think any of my opponents wanted my.
You sure? I saw a video with you and Beckham kind of getting into it one time. I thought maybe you switched.
Yeah, then I was like, here, and he was like, you can keep it. No, but I don't remember. But when I was with DC United, I think it was our second season. We played Leeds United, right? And and this was like a test match, like a scrimmage. So I show up to Leeds, right? And right away, we're kind of in the fire and trying to do everything we can to get results so we don't get relegated. And there's a guy named Mark Jackson who had played for the club, and he was coaching the U23 team. And so we needed staff members, so I brought him in with my team. And then we were traveling, I think, for our first match to Leicester, and we're on the bus, and he says to me, hey, I think I have your jersey. And I said, what? And he says, yeah, I think we traded jerseys when we played in DC against DC United back in 1997. And so the next week he brought and he had my jersey. Like, wow. And Tony, I don't know if you remember those old jerseys. They were all like stitched. They looked like they were stitched by hand.
They were heavy.
And like, heavy as can be, huge. And so he brought it and then he had me sign it. And then we took a photo together. It's crazy that here we connected years later. So.
That's a great story.
Wow. That's a good one.
Yeah. That's
I think it's because he didn't know how bad I was that he thought that's why he went. Maybe I must have played better. I must have played out of my mind.
All right, everybody, we're going to call it a show. We want to give a shout out once again to Big Tones, Tony Meola, for joining us. Hopefully you'll be joining us again very, very soon. Jesse, great to see you as always. Shout out to Ivis Gallersepp for his performance in the $1 billion goal, of course. And go check that out again on Paramount Plus. And for all the work that he does for us behind the scenes, producer Des, producer Brad, we appreciate you guys. And thank you for listening and watching as always. We'll see you very, very soon. Have a good weekend. Later.